This is Jessica.
And this is Kelly. And this is the Chasing Brighter
podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode. Our guest today is Sierra Redmond. She is a travel industry expert, digital content creator, and military spouse entrepreneur behind the Daily Impressions travel and lifestyle blog. She has spent many years in the media and travel industry, and through her blog and freelance writing, has found a way to collide the two worlds. Sierra holds an undergraduate degree in mass communications, TV, and radio, as well as a master's degree in travel and tourism from Temple University. As her background suggests, travel media is her passion, and through digital media, she strives to produce top-notch content that continues to inspire audiences to travel and explore the world around them. Aside from media, Sierra is the wife of an active duty service member and mother to a 7-year-old extraordinaire. Sierra also dedicates her life's work to the military community, in which she serves as a Military Spouse of the Year program alum for Armed Forces Insurance. Welcome, Sierra. We're so excited to have you today.
Yeah, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me this morning.
That was a mouthful. My goodness. Lots of expertise happening.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope we can talk about some of that today and give your audience some great tips.
You know, doing research and just looking at your blog, I know your photos are so beautiful.
Oh,
and I say so often in the blog, I have a joke, and my kids know, like, I like to wear black, and sometimes very dark gray. And so then when I see your photos, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, when I travel, I've got to bring bright colors because they're your photos are so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. No, that's your uniform. You got to stick to it, whatever you feel comfortable with. We just want moms in the picture in the first place, right?
That's right. I know. And that's the other thing, too. I know. That's my 2023 goal, right? Because I do, you'll go back and be like, oh my gosh, look at where we went. And there's no mother.
Yeah, I'd even do that. I have people send messages and they're like, were you even there? I'm like, well, if I give my husband the camera, then it's not going to be exactly what I envisioned. So I'm back there shooting away.
My 8-year-old loves to shoot the pictures, but those angles from 8-year-old level, that's not my best angle.
That's hilarious. You let them take a practice shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, okay.
You have so much experience in media and travel. Like, what has inspired you to create this content on travel?
I guess I'll go back with the mini story time. I actually got married my sophomore year of college. I was really, really young. My husband is my high school sweetheart, as people would call it. We went to high school together. He's a year older than me, and he went off to the military. So we ended up getting married my sophomore year, and I was a journalism major. I thought that I was going to be Oprah Winfrey. I thought I was going to be a broadcast journalist. I was going to be on the news. That was my favorite thing to watch as a child. Like, why? And I graduated from college after that transition of being married and moving out to where he was at the time. And I could not get a job as a journalist. No one wanted a military spouse. In the media industry, they want someone that they can hone skills with and, have someone grow up in the company. And I'm like, hey, the best I can give you is 1.5 years, 2 years to be anywhere that I am,
Yeah.
But I move so often. And so I met another military spouse friend who had a blog. And I'm like, a blog? People, you're thinking of old blogs like, oh, people just go in there, they do it as a hobby. And she's like, no, I make money from it and I get to choose whatever lane or topic I want to report on. I'm like, that sounds cool. So I started my blog originally just talking about everything, specifically military life. And I came across a group of military spouses at my base. I was at Fort, I call Lost in the Woods, Missouri. It was awful. But the common complaint that I saw in Facebook groups is that there's nothing to do here. It's awful. We hate it. We can't wait for the 2 years to be over so we can move somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I don't want to go through my whole 2 years with that thought process. That's miserable. So I started my blog talking about things to do in my local area. And then giving that information to military spouses. And that was kind of like the birth of what I was talking about on my blog. And I had no idea that it was going to actually turn into a travel blog, let alone luxury travel.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the basis. Like I was able to use my journalism skills, my passion that I had for going out in the community, trying new restaurants, staying at hotels, and providing that information to military spouses through my blog, even back then. So that's kind of like just the basis of what got this journey started in the first place. And since then, I've changed a little bit, but that's my starting point.
What are some of your resources? Like, so to your point about being in the middle of nowhere, and everything, there's so much content now. Right. No matter what. But like, where have you gone to even sort of get some initial starting points, especially when you are in the middle of nowhere and there aren't a lot of resources to try stuff out?
You know, the thing is, everywhere, even if it's a big, small town, has a tourism board, and that should be everyone's first stop. Those are the destination marketers. It's their job to make you like the place, to share their fun, exciting events and restaurants. It might be just like a little tiny hole in the wall restaurant. They're talking about it because they want to give people an attraction to go to in their town. And for us, we were a military town first. So they had millions of people coming in town for military graduations. It's a huge, like, basic boot camp kind of graduation. And they had to share that information with people that were going to be there for the weekend. So I went to my tourism website, looked at all that, and even just started local. Like, you know, we get in a habit if we live somewhere of going to our favorite restaurant, maybe on Friday or Saturday. Instead, go try something else. And so that trial and error just kind of gives you that desire to explore. Or the fact that the place that I lived at the time was on Route 66. People don't think of that stop on Route 66, though. You think of the big ones. You think of Oklahoma City. You think of Santa Monica. So I wanted to go find out what that history was, what made this town important. And I shared a lot of it.
It sounds like with your journalism training, you also kind of went at it kind of as an investigative reporter, you know, going and doing the research.
Right. Like, if we're going to be here, we need to see what makes this town actually amazing. Why should we like it even a little bit?
I love when people say happiness is ear to ear, you know, I mean, so it's like, you're right. You can find some places, right? You can find some things to do. Sometimes it might take a little bit more work, right? But it sounds like that you took that up, as inspiration, right? For your blog and to, you know, accept that challenge.
Yes. That was very early days. After we left Fort Leonard Wood, we got so blessed and lucky, and we got Miami, Florida, of all places. So we really hit the ground running with the content and sharing what there is to do in Miami, like off the beaten path.
Yeah, lots to do. I went, that's where Kelly had her bachelorette party. Cal, Miami, right? That's the only time I've ever been there. Have you been there again, Cal?
I have. I had like a conference when I was at JLL. Brian came in. We stayed at, the conference was at the Ritz on Key Biscayne. And so we stayed at the Ritz, which was really cool. I'm a big fan of off the beaten path, especially living in Chicago, because I hate people, even though I love living in a big city. And sometimes I feel like you get more out of those off the beaten path. They're not as crowded. They're more interesting. You kind of get a little bit of you can get a better experience because you're not fighting crowds or waiting for people to read the sign and then it's your turn, right? It's sort of a different experience. Is that what you found, or what kind of drives you to do the off the beaten path items?
Yeah, I think that's my whole spiel about Las Vegas, because people think, genuinely, I've actually had a conversation on a plane with a guy sitting next to me and my toddler at the time. And he's like, "You're bringing the kid to Vegas?" I'm like, "Well, I hope so, because he lives here." He's like, "Well, what do you do with him?" We don't actually live in hotels. And actually, I can have a fulfilling living experience in Vegas and never see the Strip at all. That is quite possible here. And I don't think people register that. So when I am sharing our favorite local restaurants or that I'm choosing Water Street and Henderson over the Strip. They're like, what? Like, you have that? I'm like, yeah.
It's so true. I'm surprised when people say they don't like Vegas or they don't like even living in Vegas, because it
Right.
seems to me that it's a city that caters to any lifestyle that you want. You
Right.
have outdoor activities, you have a lot of indoor activities. I
Right.
mean, sports, gambling, shopping,
All the
hiking.
restaurants.
So yeah, I mean, I visit there quite a bit, and I'm always surprised when people think, because we're always traveling with the kids, like, why would you go to Vegas, or why do you like Vegas? It's like, I don't even step foot in a casino
Right.
when we go. Like, my kids did. My kids have, Josie, last time I was there, my parents took the kids to eat in the casino because they get all their points. You know how some of those
Yeah.
folks are, they like their freebies. So they've been in the casinos more than I have, I think, at this point.
That's funny. Mine has too, but we try, we'll go to shows and restaurants, which is completely fine. I think there's plenty to do even for kids. A lot of them even have kids clubs. So they can enjoy that. But I could live a whole year outside of the Strip, still create content, still, have a fulfilling life here and not feel like I'm missing anything. And we only live 10 minutes, 15 minutes away. So
well, there's so many people who are drawn to the city for different reasons. I mean, if people are coming for conferences and conventions and they don't like to gamble, right? There's a draw for folks who want to try what other activities there are to do.
Right.
So how long have you been in Vegas?
About 3 years now.
Wow.
But this is our permanent home. We're wrapping up the military side of things, and we have planted roots here, and we love it. And I never could have guessed that.
No, me either. I didn't even want to come here, even when we were coming. So our parents moved here in 2006. Mm-hmm. And actually, we have a lot of family have migrated here from Kansas. So I have an aunt and uncle and some cousins that live here now, which is really nice. But probably just from what we're talking about, like a misconception of what Vegas was like.
Right.
That it wasn't like my top choice to come here. Mm-hmm. But I think, and I'm sure you've traveled and moved around a lot as well. Like, you find your people anywhere, and so it's like, once you find your people, then you're like, oh, okay. I can make this home.
Yeah, this definitely felt like home once we came here.
That's a great thing to talk about, though, Jess. I mean, Sierra, especially with you guys moving around so much, what is it like for you to find your people? Like, to find your tribe when you've moved around so much?
They come from everywhere. I've been in a mix of, we've never lived on base, but my husband has been in 2 unique and special assignments and then 2 just regular base assignments. So on post, I feel like it was easier to find other people who could relate to us as military families. There's just like that common denominator. We kind of just get each other without even knowing each other. Mm-hmm. But in the special assignments, like when we are here and in Miami, those are not military bases or Army bases. We're not stationed at Nellis or anything. So we were out in the general population. But we found here in particular that we got lucky. Our next door neighbors are our best friends and like family to us after 3 years of being here in their prior service as well. So I felt blessed to be able to find, them. It's next door was a coincidence, but actually our whole neighborhood is like veterans. And I think that's the Nevada thing. Like, I think a lot of people just decide to retire here or to get out here. And so even without the base being like a safe haven for us, we were able to find people that can relate. I also find that Las Vegas, even though it seems like a big city, really is a small town. Yeah. And people actually genuinely care for each other. And that's not something you usually put with the West Coast. I'm from the South, and that kind of hospitality is here. And I was shocked to find that too.
It's interesting you say that, because I think a lot of people I know are pretty close to their neighbors.
Yeah.
That really is true. We moved here. This is so crazy. You would have been gone before you moved here, but we live on a cul-de-sac street and it was called Christmas Street. I think we've talked about the podcast before, Cal, but anyways, they would bring buses here from the strip and everything to see the lights during Christmas.
Wow.
And we did not know that. So we inherited like 10 Disney princesses when we moved here. We had the Disney princess house, and I just had my daughter at the time.
Who is 18 months old and obsessed with princesses.
Yeah, worked out perfectly. We got
Loved it.
all the things. And then, so all of the neighbors were super close. They all moved here in like 99, 2000, and we're all very, very close. And so they have all since moved to the new community in Sparata, but they all moved together and are all very, very, very close still. But they're, they're older than my husband and I. So we were just kind of beginning our family, and their kids were all kind of in high school. But that really provided a lot of support for us when we moved here, which you're right. It's like, I think, again, a misconception of the Las Vegas area. And then what are things that you enjoy doing? Is that where you also kind of find friends?
You know what? Not really. I have not found someone yet that likes to. I'm trying to get into more of the creator community. To be fair, like I said, we've been here almost 3 years. So when we moved here, it was pandemic. We couldn't even leave our house. So that wasn't fun. So the first introduction I had to people were my neighbors. And you said they were kind of close together. I'm like literally and figuratively close together because of our, how the yards and the houses are. And I'm like, I would hate to be next to someone that I didn't like, so we got lucky there. But now that the pandemic is, kind of moving out of the forefront of our mind and our plans, I'm trying to get out more and make sure that I meet people that have maybe the same profession, that are local entrepreneurs. And I know that there were programs before we moved here for like creatives, and some of those are starting to come back. I'm seeing. So I hope to just like find more people doing those kind of events.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I love your Instagram.
Thank you.
So much. And it is at I am Sierra Red. And I love watching your travels. And so I just kind of want to talk a little bit about how you transitioned, right, from creating content on where you guys were stationed to then begin kind of like you're saying, not just luxury travel with family.
Yeah, that transition happened in Miami. Obviously we had access to more. Miami is kind of like here. It was a hub where we were kind of choosing to go on cruises more often. So we were starting to go to the Bahamas and to Mexico. And my son was about, I want to say 9 months old. And some of the questions that I was getting was, you're taking the baby to another country as a baby? Like the thought kind of seemed foreign. Or like someone will ask me, how do you get your kid to not cry on an airplane? Or what tips do you have for actually surviving the travel day with a 9-month-old? And so I started answering those questions. And like I said, the blog kind of transformed from being so much about military to tips and tricks traveling with kids, and then showing families that they could still have an elevated lifestyle on those travel experiences with the kids. People think that luxury means stuffy, or the kids aren't invited, or there's nothing for them, they would be bored. And that's not the case at all. Matter of fact, many of luxury travel experiences have a lot of dedication to kids, like kids clubs, programming, activities, food items that are dedicated towards them. So I find that to not be true, and I try to make sure that I feature that on my content.
I love on your blog, Kelly, she has this picture of her son. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where he's in the robe? He's wearing a robe and he's in the hotel room, like reading. Oh my God. So cute. I'm like, oh, look at this kid here with this robe. It makes me laugh. I know Kelly and I talk sometimes about our kids. You know what I mean? So, we're from rural Kansas. We were literally like born on a pig farm, right? And then you cut to like our kids having these experiences where you're like, really?
Did this place have truffle fries? Because I think they get to experience so many things.
Right.
they don't realize it's so different. I also think just kids these days, it's just different. They have access to so much more. It's very different. But
Yes. Mine will tell me where he wants to go. And I know there's another picture on my Instagram that kind of got popular of him getting a massage in Mexico during our trip. And they're like, the baby's getting a massage. What is happening? Like the kids deserve the luxury too.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing too is, and we talk about this so much, but like self-care, and we've talked like Kelly and I, our mother had one full-time, if not two jobs, a lot growing up, and there was no self-care. Right. And so it's like, how can we expect them? Like they can learn, right, how to care for themselves. I think that's important. That you're not just like trying to raise overachievers or something like that, but also like a well-rounded individual that knows how to have downtime and care for themselves.
Right. Definitely teaching that. And then two, his travel experience it isn't all luxury. Some of it is an adventure. Some of it is learning. We would try to make sure we have a learning element to all of our trips. So it's culture. So the first time that he's exposed to something is with us in a controlled environment, and we're in that country, and he sees it again and he's like, oh, I've experienced that. I've eaten that. I know what that is. And, that I think that stops bullying if you have exposure. So I'm going to do my part with my kid to make sure that he's exposed to different people, cultures, all of that. And we don't have that kind of experience at school.
Because you're like creating an open-minded human of like, oh, wow, like life's not this like black and white thing, but wow, people live all different kinds of ways.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was cool. We got to take the older two internationally, but I think that you can do that even with little. I always joke because we travel a lot to like the Inland Empire and stuff for sports, or we travel to, I don't know, really rural areas, but you can still find opportunities, right? That's still seeing a different type of life, different kinds of people. You can still have those same lessons, like you're saying, even if it's not like international travel. Yeah. What goes into you choosing a destination?
You know what? We kind of let the destination choose us when we're traveling for leisure and not for work. Mm-hmm. And some of that like mystery of like where we're going to end up going, we have dates usually in mind. And we, of course, have like a bucket list of places we want to go. If it fits into the time frame and the budget that we don't want to exceed, then we'll go. If not, we're open to exploring new places. And the funny thing is, that's how we ended up living here. We came here on an accidental vacation with a 2-year-old, and I'll just tell that story. We were supposed to be going to San Diego. And my husband, like I said, is in the military. So, of course, I'm like, hey, these are the dates. Go ahead and put in your leave. We're going to go on this trip. But we don't buy anything until the leave is approved to go. And he waited a little bit too late, as husbands do sometimes, and the prices skyrocket. So I'm like, okay, well, we have these dates available. The leave is done. Where should we go? And I go on Google Flights. That's usually my first resource if I am just like kind of letting the destination choose me. And we saw that we can go to Las Vegas from St. Louis for about $200. And I'm like, how about we take the 2-year-old to Vegas? And he's looking like, we're doing what? Because neither one of us had been here. And when we got here, we took a leap of faith. We did not stay on the Strip. We actually stayed at Hilton Lake Las Vegas, of all places. No one thinks to do that when they go to Vegas for the first time. But I saw it. It fit our Hilton Honors points. It was beautiful. And I didn't know how far it was from the Strip or close, but I just thought it was beautiful and it worked out. So we booked it. And our stay here was in Henderson. So we got to see more of the local side of things. Of course, we traveled to the Strip throughout the day to like explore. We went out to Red Rock Canyon. We went to Hoover Dam and Boulder City during that trip. But we got to really see the local perspective while we were there. And we came back from a trip thinking, we should move to Vegas. And so when he got the opportunity to do like a special assignment, he was working with the ROTC program at UNLV. He chose to be at that school to do that program so that we could test out living here. And now we're here we're stuck. We
That's
love it.
awesome. I love that. And so you have your go-tos like Google Flights
Yes, Google
and
Flights is top for me.
and then your hotel rewards and
Mhm.
then you go kind of by time and then kind of like what's the best bang for your buck
Right.
in that
Yeah.
time frame.
Try to use my resources. Google Flights is excellent for me and for anybody else that's looking to travel to a destination, maybe even if they're on a budget, because you can put the destination you're coming from and leave the receiving end blank, or you can put the country instead of like the city.
Hmm.
And then it'll tell you where the cheapest place you can go for your time frame. You can also have it searched by the entire month. So maybe you don't know in October where you want to travel to. You could put in October. I'll be flying from Las Vegas, leave the receiving end blank, and it'll tell you what is the best week to go to a destination, which destinations to go to, what airlines offer that travel experience for you. And I think it takes some of the guessing game out. And if you're on a budget, that's your best like defense to go to instead of just saying, I want to go to Tahiti,
Right.
maybe somewhere else is cheaper. So you might get that same kind of experience or one that you didn't even expect to have because you let the destination choose you based on the price and your requirements.
Yeah.
I love that. I'll have to try that out. I also like,
too.
that's great that there's flexible search because I just recently struggled with that when we traveled for spring break because I had a certain time frame, but I didn't care where we were going. I also prefer direct flights when I can get them. But just having that flexibility to see like what things cost what. So using hotel rewards, what about some other tips or things that people may not know in terms of whether it's picking a destination or how they would book it?
Yeah. So like I said, let the destination choose you. Also, don't discount your drivable markets. I know Vegas, I consider a hub. We are lucky in the fact that from 2 to 4 hours, we could be in California, Utah, Arizona. So I've experienced that during spring break. Unfortunately, I don't know, besides inflation, what is going on, but flights are outrageous and we had to quickly pivot. And luckily we live in an area where we can drive to those areas.
Yeah.
So really
Like everybody's going on spring break or something,
Yeah.
It seems like travel bounce back or something.
it is. And I mean, we tried to go to where did we go? We tried to go on a Disney cruise and we were going to go out of Miami and it was like $3,000 a person. I'm like, that can't be right. It has to be airfare. But no, I looked up multiple destinations and it was like that. So our pivot was, okay, we can go out of San Diego. We can go to Phoenix, Scottsdale. We can go to St. George, Utah. And so we're lucky in that we have that drivable market, but I'm just telling families don't discount that. Don't think that spring break means you have to do something extravagant. You can experience something new in your area or close by that you hadn't experienced before and cut some of the costs.
I love that because I think some families have a hard time planning well in advance to get the best deals on some of those travel things. And so being able to be flexible like that, that's a really great tip. Because, if we had the luxury of booking things a year in advance, things are a lot cheaper, right?
We have close by near Williams, Arizona, Arizona. And then there's stuff around Flagstaff, a lot of stuff around there. And I think one of my favorite spring break, to see if my family agrees, was 2021, kind of really still pretty heavy in the pandemic. And I wanted to get away and we got this cabin. It was like the steal of the century. And we were literally backed up to a national forest. Like you would walk in the backyard and there was a gate to the national forest.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like, and I think it was like in that area, there's not there's not well water. You have like, they kind of have their own little mini water tower. I don't know the situation. I felt like it was a beautiful little 2-bedroom cabin situation, but maybe people would, I don't know. I was like, why was this so inexpensive? It was this gorgeous little cabin with a huge deck in the middle of nowhere. And that ended up being our favorite destination because I think we're still fearful during the pandemic to be around people. So we just kind of hiked every day and we're just in the forest and it was so great. And so you're so right. Sometimes some of our favorite trips end up being something that we just drove to.
Right. We had that experience in 2020 when we were moving here. Usually military families move by driving to their destination, but it was June 2020, so really fresh into the pandemic. But we decided, since we had to drive anyway, that I don't like road trips. So we had started doing this thing where the road trip would be over several days and we would see where we could stop along the way. And that was the actual travel experience because we couldn't actually do much when we got there. So we drove from St. Louis to Las Vegas, and that was Route 66. And we stopped in Oklahoma City first. That was fun. Oklahoma City was like that's still the place in the United States that shocked me the most. I love that city. I'm not a small town person, but they are so vibrant and kind and so many activities for kids. So we did that. After that, we went to, where did we stop next? Texas, in Amarillo, Texas, where the Cadillac Ranch is, and they have the Cadillacs buried face down into the sand, and it's like an art formation. It was beautiful. We went to Sedona, which you think of that as an adult kind of oasis, but we went on a Jeep tour there and it was open air. And because of the pandemic, we couldn't be on a group trip. So we just had our private Jeep with a tour guide. And that was awesome because we climbed the rocks and saw all the views. And then we came here. And so instead of taking 18 hours to drive and be in misery, we took 7 days and just really explored the entire Route 66. So when we got here, we didn't necessarily go on a vacation because of the pandemic, but when we got here, we really felt like we had explored so much of the West because of that. And so if families are thinking about going on a road trip, don't think of it as a daunting task. It doesn't even have to be a drivable market in 4 to 6 hours. It'd be up to 18, but see what you could see along the way. Maybe stop at a national park and add that in. Free activities, just restaurants you try along the way. And I think that would be an even more impactful trip for your family than you planning an extravagant vacation.
Yeah. And when you did that trip, again, what were your resources to look up? Like, okay, what along Route 66 do I want to see?
Like the things to do or the places to eat at?
Yeah. So I actually planned the trip based on my tolerance in a car, which is 3 to 4 hours. And it's embarrassing. I'm a toddler. I don't want to sit in there. So I first pulled up the map between St. Louis and Las Vegas to see what major cities were about in that 3 to 4 hour time frame. Some days I could push it to 6 if that meant we were going to be in the middle of Arizona instead of Flagstaff, or, like that. So I did dot my map to see what was in my comfortability for the timeline that we were on there. And then I used the tourism boards. And then my next favorite thing to do is social media. So I'll hashtag the city and see what the locals are doing or other tourists are doing and where, like, they may have gone to a mural that's impossible to find. And I'm finding that on social media and clicking their coordinates to see where it was. And I'll add that to my list. And I have like a running tab on my notes to see, okay, we're stopping at this city in 4 hours. We can do this, this, and this and stay here. So that's usually my thing.
That's a great one.
But yeah, I love it. TikTok is really changing the game too, as far as like finding things to do in cities, because I think a lot of content is about that. And not only do you have the picture like you did on Instagram, because, reels weren't really a thing then. Now you have video, like what was their actual experience like? So I think that's also changing the game for travel.
I love that too, because it's much more dynamic. We booked for our spring break and we booked just doing Cancun run-of-the-mill resorts. But when I looked at reviews and everything, I just feel like things have changed so much. And a lot of places have been around for a really long time that it's hard to find the latest and greatest content, on reviews or whatever, things are really dated. So
Right.
reaching out to the tourism board or social media is really great because that's sort of the latest and greatest
Yeah.
in
They
a
have
lot of ways.
updated information.
Yeah.
And social media, you can search by relevance. Relevance can mean that it was posted today versus 6 months ago. So you have that updated. If I'm going somewhere tomorrow, I don't need to know what someone's experience was 6 months ago at a hotel. I need to know what happened last weekend because that's going to be the closest mirror to my experience when I get there. And so I do look to social media and sometimes TripAdvisor.
Because Jess, even when we went to Cooperstown, I mean, there were places that like weren't open that we thought would be.
Don't even exist anymore.
Yeah. We have a whole
episode
coming out in Cooperstown, our Cooperstown experience last year, but that was, I know I've said this multiple times, but you came to Vegas in June and you see that Vegas was not shut down when you came, right? Like Vegas opened up in June 2020. Mm-hmm. And so I was very surprised in 2022 when I traveled that everybody was still like coming out of the pandemic because they didn't, have casinos that ran the town that opened us back up. So we were like, Kelly and I were laughing. And again, before we started, Sierra and I were talking about how spoiled we were in Vegas, but we went to go to this place. Remember, Kelly? And they wrote in handwriting and the paper was like, we'll be back in 4 days. And we were like, there was no dates on it.
It was like it was a sandwich shop that was like
from what?
We don't know exactly. It was like a family emergency. Like every day we would kind of like drive by to see if the sign was still there.
Yeah. And TripAdvisor used to be my go-to. And I think that trip, like nothing, was updated. And
it was a lot of fails. Hours were changing quickly, right?
Yeah. And no websites were updated. And so we were going in that town, we were going to Facebook for things because they had Facebook pages.
At least they would post that. So then it was like before we got in the car, we're like, okay, let's see if it's open. It was like, nope, closed today. So
I was joking because one place was open. Like, what was it? Like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from like 12 to 6, whatever it was. Every time we were like, okay,
there. Friday we'll go on Friday. And then it was like, nope, closed for
their refrigerator was broken or something.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And this place is supposed to be like this huge place to go. But I love that with social media because I do find a lot of times when you do a review based website or app, a lot of times I think it's what do you want to say? Like a lot of people want to complain, right? Yeah. So like when you have a bad experience, that's when you leave a review. And so that might not be the truest experience. And so when you can see a reel or a TikTok, you can kind of get an up-to-date thing. And I love that searching by relevance. And then you said checking the coordinates. You're teaching me, I'm already a pretty good stalker, but you're teaching me to be a better stalker. I never thought to check the coordinates. I'm like, oh, I've got to figure this out.
It shows you the location. That is creepy now that I think about it. It shows the location if you tag it, like to find that weird mural that was somewhere. So yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. No, that's so true. Because I'm going to do some further stalking because you posted a picture with a mural on it. And I was like, where is she? Is that in Vegas? I was like, okay, note to self, I've got to stalk where Sierra was with that beautiful mural in the background. But we do have so many things. I just went for the very first time to the Arts District.
Really?
And I've been here 14 years.
There's so much. Now, the Arts District is changing quickly. Yeah. So if you've been before, you haven't been, right?
I think so.
New restaurants, new shops, all kind of new stuff. Like we went I think about a year ago, and then we went back, and I'm like, that wasn't there.
Well, also, I think like a lot of those places, those little restaurants and little boutique coffee shops are now like in downtown Summerlin. And now they're coming here because I think Makers and Finders is a little coffee shop that now has like several locations. But there was a time when some of those restaurants were only at the Arts District. And so I think they're coming over here. So, in Vegas, listeners, if you have to drive more than 10 or 15 minutes, the chances are very low that you're going to do that, right? And so if it's like, oh, well, why go there when I when it's right here, when it's in Henderson now
Because
sometimes.
it's
So
trendier and you can just explore
you're
the
right. Explore the
district.
whole thing. We're really excited. I went to the boutique for the Love LV, and we're going to have Emily Johnson on. And that's a cute little boutique. And you're right. It is different. It's a totally different vibe.
Mhm.
And it does inspire a person to push you. Like Kelly's in Chicago. Kelly's so neighborhood based,
Really.
right? Like you guys are so. You're in. What are you? What's your neighborhood now, Kel?
I identify with Ukrainian Village.
It is Ukrainian Village still,
Yeah.
but it's like that's neighborhood based, and it's like, oh wait, what about this neighborhood and this neighborhood? Same thing. I'm sure you
Yeah.
stay in your neighborhood, but there's like millions you could check out.
Well, my son who plays baseball, he plays way up north, and
Mhm.
every Sunday morning I love it because I go to a different coffee shop in the neighborhood. But it's like my travel. This is my little travel fix. Is just trying a different neighborhood. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
Well, I keep preaching to people that travel doesn't actually have to mean you go anywhere. It's just travel is going out of your norm. And if
I
you
love
just
that.
set your sight on that, then you've already had a travel experience.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so true. Just even the other day, I didn't even know this. My son's little bestie, his mom took them to this bounce house, and right by her house, she was like, there's a Japanese grocery store there. And this is like literally a half a mile from my house.
I know
was
exactly
like,
where it is.
No,
I can tell you where it
didn't
is,
know
Jess.
that. I
And
was
you
like,
know
no, I didn't know that. And then the
We
kids
walked
were
right by
like,
there when we went hiking. Is that the place? I'll talk to you offline about this.
Kelly's like, well, you need to know. Well, but you know what I mean? It's like oh, now I've got to go over there and check that situation out, because I love that. And that is when you're talking about it. It's like, what do you love about travel? Experiencing new cultures, experience different food, experiencing different things. And like, how cool that now I can go, because you got my son to try all of these things. He's my pickiest.
Yeah.
And he picked out all these things. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to take my kids there and go pick out some things to try. Right. And like you're saying, it's going out of our norm. I love that.
As I saw that, especially in the pandemic, like you can't go anywhere. So what can you do? Or for families that may be on a tighter budget and they're like, well, we can't afford to take all of our kids to this country. I'm like, okay, well, take them to a restaurant to experience that cuisine. Take them. I mean, especially here in Vegas, we have a cultural festival for everything.
Yes.
So at bare minimum, for free, you can take them to that cultural festival, maybe tie in a restaurant after that or another like activity or experience. And then you've traveled for the day, and that's at no cost to you. So I love families.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm looking at a cruise. We'll see if it happens. But do you have any tips or recommendations if you wanted to do a cruise with your family?
Ooh, when I went on my last cruise right before the pandemic, so I haven't been on a cruise since.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that we did is make sure that we had the money in our budget to kind of upgrade to what is it called? It's like a extended experience. Like we didn't actually have what's it called, status with the cruise line.
Okay.
But we paid for the experience to get what people with status had.
Okay.
So that allowed us to like skip the lines for shows that we were going to, maybe sit a little bit closer for those shows and experiences. Try some of the specialty dining, which is totally not necessary on a cruise, but especially if it's like your second cruise and you kind of want a more relaxed experience that isn't like, hurry up, we have to go, and then hurry up and wait into a long line.
Yeah.
I would just say make sure you have the extra money in your cruise to do some of that.
Yeah.
And then also paying attention to what excursions. My thing with cruises is you only have 8 hours to maybe experience a whole country. And so instead of us prioritizing like a water park, we'll go on a cultural experience instead. That would include like a food tour and then like some history. That way we haven't really experienced the country in 8 hours, but in the future, when we're looking to travel back there, like by air, we're like, okay, well, we have basis of what this country is about. Did we like it enough to return? Or we can go on this tour and we're like, oh, we missed this stop, but when we fly back, we can do that, and you wouldn't get that same cultural feel at a water park. You could do a water park at home. So really prioritizing that for your excursions.
I love that. So would you also say, in terms of a cruise, even if you hit a cruise line or a trip that's a little bit below budget versus what's the end of your budget, you pick a place that maybe you are reserving enough to get those additional experiences rather than blowing the bank on just like a, I don't know, celebrity cruise line or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. And our first cruise was Carnival. And so we had a Carnival experience, but we had a great time. And then the next time we went on Royal Caribbean, I'm like, okay, we have a little bit more in the budget. We can do Royal. Now we're setting our sights on Disney. We haven't done it yet, but
we've been talking about it. Those Disney cruises are so expensive. Kelly and I, that's kind of like bucket list with both our families. But also, I was looking at celebrity cruises the other day, and if you book way in advance, they're having right now buy one get one half off.
Wow.
And because we're a family of 5, we always have to get 2 rooms internationally, and so like my husband could buy one, get one half off. Then I could buy one, get one half off. And the third booking was $1,000 off.
Nice.
So it was really, really inexpensive for international travel. When you think of a cruise, you're getting everything included. And I was looking with insurance and everything just to kind of see like, okay, if I got every single thing, but that would be booking out way in advance. Right. But I was really surprised at that. Because I think sometimes we think, yeah, that's super expensive. But
I mean, when you factor in what you get on a cruise versus taking that same trip internationally, like I had to do that too. Like say we go to Mexico and we're flying there. So you've flown there and then you have to pay for the hotel and then your food for the days and the activities. Well, if you're going on a cruise, it's probably $1,000 to $2,000 cheaper to go on the cruise there. And then your room and board is covered. Your food is covered. Your activities, for the most part, on the ship are covered. And we found that we saved money. And then also telling families that, hey, this is your time to consider everything you're eligible for. Do you have AARP? Do you have military discount? Are you a local? Do you have a family member traveling with you that is a local to California or Florida or Texas? Consider everything and make sure if you're utilizing those discounts. Point credit cards can be converted for this too. So if you're really on a budget or you want to save for something like an experience while you're there, make sure you're considering what discounts will get you there in your budget and then having the extra to spend for the excursions. But cruises are amazing in that they are what you make it. If you had no budget at all and you just paid for the cruise, you can still have an amazing time, especially ones like Royal Caribbean and Disney that have a private island. And so that first private island on your ship is covered, including the food, and you're not having to figure out what excursions you want to go on. So really consider those if you don't want to spend any extra money except for just bare minimum of the cruise.
Yeah, we've done both where we've kind of paid for an excursion and then we've just like got off the boat and walked around and and that was just as fun, right? You can find, like you're saying, particularly, well, not even internationally, but you can walk around and walk into various places and get a feel for that area. I loved having you today.
Thank you so much.
This was so great.
It was great meeting you.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening and joining us today.
And don't forget to follow us on social media at Chasing Brighter or on our blog, chasingbrighter.com.